Of Coffee with the Critters, where we live stream every Sunday morning, usually at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, with a tidbit of information, except for when we have on a guest, which is today, and that is professional dog trainer, colleague, and friend Sylvia Koczerzuk. I'm going to be bringing her on here in a second. So I know a lot of people have been requesting information about resource guarding, and I've had Sylvia on a couple times in the past. She's a great resource. Her and I talk a lot behind the scenes about different types of things. So I'm happy to bring her on here again today. But before we get started, I just want to mention, if you want to find out more about the information we do here at the Animal Behavior Center, you can always contact me on our contact form on the animalbehaviorcenter.com. You can always reach me via email at Lara, Lara, at the animalbehaviorcenter.com. And for those that are new, I am the owner of the Animal Behavior Center, an international educational online resource for teaching people about behavior through working with animals. And in a nutshell, what I do is just teach people about understanding behavior, um, using the laws of behavior by B.F. Skinner, applied behavior analysis. I have several different online services, in-person workshops, but you can find out more about that on our website. We'll have events. You'll see we'll have some upcoming in-person workshops. I just posted a blog the other day that I have received great feedback. And with that being said, I know I've been mentioning, good morning, everybody. I know I've been mentioning I have some new services coming up. I was just talking to Sylvia about the one that we're hoping to launch yet this week, and that is our live drop-in classes. So you do not need to be a member. We are going to make posts on our website and via social media and in our newsletter on a topic in the science of behavior training, even enrichment. They will be 1 hour sessions. You don't need a membership. You just register, join, and meet me at that time. So with that being said, I am going to bring Sylvia on. Sylvia, you ready? Okay, here she comes. Um, so Sylvia's, good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Sylvia's been on with me before in the past. I have recently been talking to her about the topic of resource guarding. So before we dive deep into this topic, let me give you, Sylvia has a very long bio, which she deserves because she has that much experience. So I've pulled out a few key points. And if you want to know more about her bio, you can read that in the newsletter I just sent out, or on the link about Coffee with the Critters on Facebook. So Sylvia is a certified dog behavior consultant and founder of Walkabout Canine Consulting. She's a trainer and the founder of Walkabout Canine Consulting, based in Kingsville, Ontario, Canada. With over 30 years in the pet care and dog training industry, Sylvia specializes in helping dog guardians understand and resolve behavior issues through science-based, compassionate, and relationship-centered approaches. She is a certified separation anxiety trainer, fear-free certified professional, and dynamic dog practitioner with additional studies in psychology and behavior science. She serves as a faculty advisor for the Victoria Stilwell Academy, where she mentors upcoming trainers with an emphasis on integrity, empathy, and evidence-based learning. She is known for her expertise in resource guarding, reactivity, and multi-dog household dynamics, and for her ability to turn complex behavior challenges into clear, actionable strategies. Her work combines positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis, posture and gait assessments, and a deep understanding of emotional well-being to help both with dogs and humans thrive. I will post her website up throughout our talk, which is walkaboutcanineconsulting.org. I will post that up here in the comments. Whew.
I thought you were gonna pare it down.
I did. I did. I thought that was very important for people to know that are going to be listening to you. I've had a lot of requests for somebody to bring on here and talk about um, everything that you specialize in,
Yeah.
especially resource guarding, separation anxiety. Maybe I bring you on for that for another topic, unless we touch on it today. But that's all of them are. I don't want to say serious. What word am I looking for? They're
There's
complex.
struggles that there's struggles that dogs are experiencing, and, of course, the guardians struggle right along with their dogs, right?
Yeah, and they're complex behaviors, but the work that you and I are both in is we don't come out of the gate telling people everything they need to be doing because they're going to shut down with an overload of information. So it's our jobs to make it easy for them to understand, take it step by step, and be there to guide them to make this successful for them. Because the end result is, Sylvia, I mean, I'll tell you what I see from working with numerous different species. The end result is the animal gets rehomed, displaced, euthanized, and it's when we're acting as these animal stewards, guardians, whatever, they're relying on us. They need us to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the point that you made is, taking things step by step, and we can't teach them the whole solution in one sitting is a really important message, Laura. It's something that I am seeing a lot, working with clients is it's essentially what they're looking for. And everybody's in a rush. Everybody's in a rush for everything, and they're in a rush for their dogs. And we need to slow down and just, focus on each step that we can have an effect on our dogs. So, yeah. Um,
Yeah. And I was just thinking last night, so much of so many of the steps we take, it's all about shaping,
mhm,
reinforcing small approximations towards the target behavior, towards the end behavior. And people tell me a lot, um, boy, you must be so patient. I am not a patient person. I am not a patient person. But through applied behavior analysis, observing behavior, understanding behavior and the laws of behavior, and both you and I take that science and this education and make it easy for people to understand, um, this is our specialty, it's not theirs. So it's up to us to make sure we're reaching them by breaking this down into these actionable steps and making sure the guardian is successful by knowing this is what you look for. Did you see that shift? Yes. Boom. That's exactly what you want. And once they get that, then they're like, okay, I'm ready for what's next. They see the progress.
yeah. I like to use this school analogy when I'm helping, clients understand that we can expect, high school or college level behaviors if we haven't even started kindergarten. That's that's what I like to use. But in regards to resource guarding, it's the same thing, but I take a pretty big approach to that because I don't see resource guarding as just a thing. Because resource guarding is pretty natural behavior in all of us. I mean, we have locks on our doors. We have, fences around our yards. If somebody came barging into our backyard we didn't know, we would go like, "What the heck are you doing here?" Right? That's an emotional response, it's a reaction. So, I mean, we all do it. All animals do it. It's pretty natural. So, it's just that, it's triggered by something. So for me, resource guarding is always a symptom. That's how I start.
Yeah.
And
And do you wanna tell people, I mean, I love the fact that you said resource guarding is a natural behavior. A lot of people know that I work with numerous different species from alligators, giraffes, bears, lemurs, birds. I see it in every single species. It's a natural behavior. We do it. One of the examples I like to give that I give in my podcast is if I'm because my husband used to do this, we'd go to dinner. He orders his dinner, I order my dinner. His dinner, my dinner. And if he's like, "Hey, can I try that?" And he takes a fork and takes a bite off my plate, once is okay. By the 5th time, I'm gonna be like, "Dude, order your own dinner. Eat off your own plate. This is mine." Um, so do you have a definition of resource guarding? Have we already defined it? I don't think we have.
yeah, for me, it's like I say, it's a natural survivor behavior, and it's triggered by something. It's triggered by a perceived threat of, whatever the dog, or well, I'm talking from a dog's point of view, is whatever the dog thinks in their brain. It could be food, it could be a certain kind of food, it could be a certain toy, it could be a certain location. It can be sometimes people, although I try to dissect that of it really being resource guarding. And then it's also depending on how they're reacting. Some of it is very subtle body language. Some of it is pretty silent. So, if we have a dog, I think it's really important that we understand. And just like you, I mean, you start working with new species and I mean, you want to learn about them. I know you learn about them as an individual, which is, it's the learner in front of you, but also learning about them as a species is helpful, and understanding, the body language that your dog has. I mean, we have information out there. So I think that is important because a lot of times I'll come in and the resource guarding was there before. It just was very silent and we weren't listening. And sometimes we aren't listening. So, um, there's also a history of unpredictability, that's happening as well because we, as the guardian, have made ourselves unpredictable. And, again, that just adds to the fear of loss. I'm seeing a rise in resource guarding behaviors in my work. So, it could be a lack of, secure access to resources. So, for those dogs that are coming into rescue that lived on the street, I mean, they experience that. They don't typically, I think street dogs are, they live a pretty good life and you know, they know how to survive. They know how to interact with people, but, yeah, so um, stress is a really big play in resource guarding. So not in my bio, but I do have experience working in different environments. So I spent some time in the shelter world, so that's a whole, I'll say, industry and understanding. And dogs in a shelter are very different than dogs that are living in their homes. It used to be in the shelter industry that if dogs were displaying resource guarding in the shelter, you wanted to work on it, and that's not so anymore because it the shelter world, the industry, as I'll say, started to learn that those behaviors were arising out of stress. And as soon as the dogs went home, there was no more resource guarding.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
because
not
it's
saying
an
all of I'm not saying all of them, but a majority of them. So then it started to become like, why are we using up resources to work on, protocols that are just unnecessary because it's all stemming from stress. The first thing I Like I say, I look at is, why is this dog displaying this behavior? There is something happening. So it can be learned for sure. Something that I'm seeing a lot is guardians, when they get a new dog into the home, they're, just letting they're overexposing their world too quickly. And then, of course, dogs are going to explore, puppies are going to explore and get into things. And, we can prevent that. And then, we're constantly taking things away and we're making ourselves unpredictable. And so, a lot of it can be prevented. I do see resource guarding in younger dogs happen because of um, we just want to take everything away from our dogs. So,
Yeah,
um,
I have a couple of things written down here as you're talking, I'm just jotting down notes that I can make mention of. I know when in my areas, I will see resource guarding of toys. Um, like you said, areas, and even objects you would think have no real value to the animal. One of the things I see very common and it's really important is just sitting back and observing and then experimenting with the environment, because you can get yourself hurt really fast, is I will see animals that come from a history of lack of enrichment, lack of opportunity, lack of opportunities to make decisions in their own environment. Something as simple as a stick or a stone that animal can resource guard because, well, can I even say because? Because do I really know? Because I don't know what's happening in the animal's mind. But from the best of what I can tell, that makes sense to me from observation is that animal is resource guarding that stick because there's nothing else in its environment to interact with. So that stick it's the only thing that animal owns or has control of, or that stone. Um, and I mentioned that, so be careful bending down and picking up that piece of trash because one animal's trash is another animal's treasure. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's in the animal's mind, right? So, I'm glad. Of course, you're going to talk about enrichment, and that's a big part of my protocol working with any dog. It doesn't matter. It can be a new puppy, a teenager, a behavior issue. Is I get owners working on increasing enrichment. There's some cases where even there's maybe some mild resource guarding with other animals in the home, and there's other things that clients want to work on. And as soon as they up the enrichment, the resource guarding just stores falls away, totally falls away.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but that's not to say that, well, you know, in regards to enrichment for dogs, I mean, we do know in our world that, and it's probably very similar in many species because, eating is comforting for us. It makes us feel good. So, licking and chewing is neurologically calming to a dog. So, the more we're giving them those opportunities, the more their brains are calming down. So, resource guarders are typically not the most confident. So there's actually literature showing that, you
Not the
know,
most confident animal?
yeah. So their predominance is, that they're already an anxious um, type dog. It is predominant in neutered male dogs. Um, because they no longer have that confidence hormone, right? The testosterone when they're neutered. So, there is literature to show that, there's a predominance in that. Some people say that it can be breed specific, and then not 100% wrong, but we also have to look at the breed and what they were bred for, right? If you see resource guarding of spaces from a livestock guarding breed, well, that's what they're bred to do. So, you
Right?
know, right? A big thing in the trainers world is saying, "Oh, gun dogs are resource guarders." Well, if you break it down, and this is something that I have seen, is if you've got a dog breed who in their DNA, their genetics are bred to pick up things and carry them, and as a puppy you start constantly taking things away from the dog, you're going against, who they are, as a dog. And that's where I do see resource guarding evolve from, the nicest dogs, the nicest bred dogs. I had a puppy client who, she went for a vet checkup and had something for the puppy to chew on, and the vet went to take it away, and the puppy growled, and the vet said, "Oh, you've got to work on this, and you have to start trading," and then I think, it was in between our sessions, and a week later, I think it was a week later, I get this email like, "Help me, this is what happened." Because this client was, I mean, she was diligent in, doing,
What
what she was shown, and she spent, the coming days constantly trading things with her puppy, and the puppy just started getting frustrated because it goes against, oh, I mean, first of all, it's frustrating anyway, but so that's something that I do see in the gun dog world is, and plus, right away they think, well, it's a retriever, so it must retrieve, and they focus on, okay, you got the toy, you need to bring it to me. Okay, I'll take it away from you. So there's little things that owners are doing by, just they don't know that
Yep.
it's what they're, that they're going against a dog's nature, but that's just one area, but yeah, so for me, it's also stress. There's a big, um it's even in an animal that might have a medical issue, so we've got literature showing us that as well.
Yeah.
Um
And that's important to obviously do your research. Do your research. Which a lot of people don't. They just see a dog and say, I want that one. Um, do your research. What else was I going to say? Oh, education and science are constantly evolving. So it's really super important when you read that book, look at the copyright date. um, research the author. Is this whoever you're reaching out for as far as guidance, as a consultant or reading a book? It's important to find out that the person that is giving you that information is up to date on their education and the science. I've got a couple different things. um, I don't even know. I guess I am going to tell you the species because it's a species that most people might not think of if they're not common. DC, a parrot, a Moluccan cockatoo, I have at the Center for Training right now from Parrot Hope Rescue. He's a resource guarder with his toys. And it took me some time to understand exactly what I was seeing. Their enclosures are so big, I have to take a ladder in to change out toys. And the reason I say that is because I'm putting myself in a dangerous position if I do not know what I'm dealing with. 4 feet in the air with a bird, a parrot in front of my face on a perch, and I'm reaching up to grab a toy that he's already destroyed to take it down to replace it with another. The first time I did that, I was really cautious, and very observant of his behavior. This perch in front of me was about 3 feet long. What I saw, and it can be different in any animal, any parrot, any Moluccan, was fast, jerky movements. I mean, I can mimic him. Goes down, stares me straight in the face as I'm reaching for that toy. And then his head starts flipping back and forth and he starts pacing. I don't want to see what comes next. He's going to lunge at my face. I'm sitting there 4 feet in the air. So there are steps and cues that I give and work with him to let him know this is what I'm doing. This is what's going to happen as a result. And I can tell it's successful based on understanding his behavior. Um, and if you want to talk about resource guarding with the wolves as well, you know,
Yeah,
I tell people if you drop something, do not pick it up. Do not reach down to pick it up. If it hits the ground, let it go. Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah, communication is really important, and, I love that you brought that up because, I mean, that's part of my it doesn't matter, it's either prevention or the protocol is, communication, letting the dog know, what you're going to do because, man, animals are so good at understanding, that predictability and I mean, they're better at reading body language than we are. So, making yourself very predictable and we can do that with either body language or words. I mean, dogs do love hand signals, but I try to encourage owners to also teach cues and letting them know what's going to happen and you know, um it's just especially because when you think about a resource guarder who is typically more of an anxious dog, anxiety loves information. So the more we can communicate. So that's always going to be part of, again, prevention um, and my protocols. So it's, yeah.
yeah, and I've said this before in the past when you just brought up information. Um, I know we're talking about resource guarding, but would you agree there might or would you say there might be some fear in there in resource guarding?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're afraid of losing what they have, but again, an animal for like in the dog world for me, because dogs are social, very social. So, they're not really supposed to be resource guarding with us, but there is, yeah, there's fear there, whether you call it fear, anxiety, sometimes it's frustration. Sometimes you've got resource guarding between dogs. I've always lived in a multi-dog household. I've never, the dogs I have now, um, the older one, she's a pretty confident dog, but when the puppy came, this puppy was like, "Everything is mine." So the first time puppy goes, "Oh, you got that, I want it." The older dog says, "Yeah, I don't think so." And then after that, I just made sure that, she got to enjoy her enrichment away from him, behind a barrier, and it's not that she was what you would consider aggressive. She just didn't like it, and I saw her discomfort, because she wanted to have her enrichment toy and she wanted to enjoy it the way, our animals are supposed to enjoy it, and I just kept them separated for a long time. They both learned that you get these on stations, so, I incorporated the stations, which is something that I strongly recommend in a single dog household and a multi-dog household because that's their safety spot. So that's what you want. They both learn. Now, if I pick up an enrichment toy, they go flying to their stations. And, that doesn't happen overnight. It happens with repetition. It happens with management. My older dog, like I say, this is just an example of stress, who is a typically, um, you know, she's a happy-go-lucky girl, but, you get older, she probably has a little bit of arthritis. And there was an incident in the backyard with a new neighbor's dog that I have a feeling it nipped her between the fence. Anyway, she was extremely stressed for a really long time. I was shocked. I was actually very, very shocked at
At
her
her response.
reaction.
how stressed she was for
Yeah,
how
she didn't even wanna go in the backyard. I couldn't take her in the backyard to go to the bathroom because she was just beside herself. It was just I was like I say, I was shocked because of, I know who she is. But there were times, I mean, things have changed because I worked on the behavior modification and it took me time. And sometimes I'm like, oh, you'd get 3 steps forward and take a step back. And it's like, nope, focus. You know what you're supposed to do, Sylvia, and just continue doing that. But when I saw some days where the stress level would go up because she knows the sound of this dog's voice now. Um, not the nicest dog in the backyard, but anyway, he likes to bark at everything. And she even knows the sound of his toy when, because the solution for the owner instead of barking, like, anyways. But
I
she
think
would
I
get
know where you're
stressed.
going.
What's that?
I said, "I think I knew where you were going with that."
Anyway, so she would get extremely stressed just hearing him, and she would be inside when I had the windows open. And, uh, she would start if it was too much in the day, and she loves being in the backyard so much. So I had to, I determined if I let her out too much, even though, he might not have been in the backyard, it was still filling her. I like to use a stress bucket analogy. And she would have something beside her and she'd be very still. And she'd resource guard with the other dog. So I thought, okay, like, you know, I'm gonna up your enrichment and I'm gonna manage your exposure. So that's just another example. I mean, I've had in my own home of recognizing the stress. It wasn't towards me, but it was towards the other dog. And no, she didn't damage the other dog, but she does damage the relationship when she does that with the other dog. So, so you need to protect everybody in the house.
Yeah, and, when working with resource guarding or any numerous different behaviors, I often say a fearful animal just doesn't have enough information. And even us fear, when we feel fear, it's lack of information. And that is what we are doing is providing that animal more information so they understand the consequences of the next door neighbor's dog, what you're getting ready to do, what you want the dog to do, what you know what the dog wants to do. You're giving it more information and steps to let it know, um, you know, that what am I trying to say? Just to let it know that it's safe. We're going to keep it safe. We're going to provide a safe environment, and to help with resource guarding. Sometimes it's depending on the level, it may be management and observation that we need to pay attention to see those subtle cues, which I call little red flags. Do you understand what this subtle behavior, or you may not even, sometimes you look at an animal and say, if somebody were to say, what behaviors are you seeing? The person may say, nothing. Well, there's an animal, so there is behavior. There's a living being. There is behavior, whether it's sitting still, chin is rested, eyes are focused on a certain area. Um,
Yeah,
so
can be silent, that's for sure.
yeah.
No.
Can
And
you
yeah, it's about changing emotion, right?
yeah, yeah. Can you give our viewers some examples of what resource guarding behaviors may look like, even the ones that they are less obvious, like, "Oh, is that what that is? Been observing
Yeah.
that, I didn't know what that was."
Yeah, so there can be silent ones. I mean, we have something that we call in the dog training industry the whale eye, where the dog is showing a lot of the whites they're looking like. You'll see a dog put their neck over, maybe a toy, stiffness, so stiff body language, and even licking something. I actually have a video of one rescue dog. I help a couple of rescues, and this dog would lick the item that it wanted to resource guard. And it was resource guarding it because the foster owner was always wanting to take it away. Um, yeah, so it could be just lying beside an item. Stiff body language is a big signal, and just watching. So those are the silent ones, and of course the growling, lunging, um, biting, snapping. Of course, those are the overt ones. So
Yeah, and even, because 'cause I'm gonna mention this because Quincy, my Rottweiler, um, it took me a second to realize what was happening. She would resource guard the threshold to the kitchen where
yeah,
in my other house,
blocking. Yep, blocking.
yeah, and it just to the common everyday person, she's just laying there at the threshold into the kitchen where all the food is plentiful, and you would watch behavior change when she would hear a dog walking up next to her, behind her, to see what's happening in the kitchen, and if you watch those other dogs, like you say, dogs are well, animals are so good at reading behavior. No vocalizations were given. So Quincy would just sit there, she'd hear another dog coming, her eye would glance, the dog would stop, go away.
Your other dog was smart.
Yeah.
Now some dogs would go, "I'm gonna do it anyway."
Um,
Yeah.
but and like we mentioned earlier, it's a common behavior. I see it in every single species, and, it used to be, and I don't know because right now I just focus on not right now, but forever, hopefully. I will just focus on training exotic animals, helping people understand behavior through working with different species of animals. It used to be in the shelter world, and I hope it's not anymore in the dog shelter where I don't know because I'm so far removed from it. Where if there were signs of resource guarding, the dog was euthanized. Has that changed?
I think it depends on the shelter and what their mandate is. Depends on where you are. The shelter that I volunteered at, they didn't necessarily do that. The shelter that I worked at and around the behavior department, it was a low, like, what's the term they use? Uh, they didn't
Low priority?
Yeah, so there was euthanasia. We did euthanize dogs, but there was a threshold. It had to be severe medical issues that were going to cost a lot of money, or it had to be, if the dog had a bite history. If there was some resource guarding at that time in the shelter industry, resource guarding was still worked on, and we worked on resource guarding so if there were dogs, it was a medium to large size shelter, so there was a behavior department. If there were, because there were, you tested for that when you did the behavior evaluation. So if we saw any resource guarding, the dog would stay. Like I say, that shelter, there was dogs that went to the front floor for adoption, and then some dogs that were kept in the back that we identified, needed to have some training and some behavior, so they were kept in the back so that we could work and train them and be ready for adoption. So it does depend. It depends on the bite. I mean, you know, if there's damage, then yeah, they are euthanized. I mean, every shelter is different. I mean, shelters euthanize for space. Some shelters, they just, you know, they don't evaluate. So how are you going to know? But resource guarding is probably a big issue where dogs are relinquished, and a big percentage of relinquishment happens when dogs are in their adolescence because they are going through a developmental stage that often owners don't understand. And that leads me back to when you're getting a puppy, hire a professional. Don't go to Google, don't go to YouTube. Yes, they're going to teach you how to sit, but a professional is gonna teach you and show you things that help with prevention of behavior issues, and that is something that I see a lot when I come in, and it's like it's like
I'll tell you what I hear a lot in, when I used to be active in training dogs, what I saw a lot, which was a lot of my frustration, Sylvia, and I know we've talked about this before. People are like, "Well, you train dogs." I'm like, "Nope, I only train exotics." But it is so important. I mean, you think certain people how am I trying to say this? You go to certain people because you think that's their specialty. Um, I can't emphasize enough when you are working with behavior issues, find a behavior professional, somebody, a professional in the industry, and what are their methods, their ethics, their education. And if you don't know, I just helped somebody reach somebody else yesterday. If you don't know, ask. And if you do ask and you get with a behavior professional, a training professional, and you're not comfortable with what they're asking you to do, it's okay to say, end it, stop. Because what's going to happen if you don't, if you see your dog not comfortable with what's happening, especially if you're, doesn't matter if you're with whatever behavior, you're gonna, if you see it not comfortable, stop. Because what's going to happen if you don't, you may be afraid to offend the person standing in front of you. What's going to happen if you don't is you're going to pay for it for the rest of your life with that dog if you keep it. You could unknowingly be reinforcing the undesired behavior, and the dog is going to lose its home. Stop, reach out, ask somebody. And if you're not comfortable, just stop. I can't emphasize that enough.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, because I've seen, and I'm sure you have seen way more instances than me. Um, I have seen too many instances where people think they are doing the right thing. I'm going to say for the animal because I'm thinking of all the species of animals that I work with. Um, I don't even remember what I was saying. With all the species of the animals that I work with, oh, I see people who have said things like, I just thought the animal was going to grow out of it. No. Um, Or I've seen things like, "The animal is too young." No. "The animal's too old." No. That is not, none of that is true. So
you can always make a change, and even, I my heart hurts sometimes when, if I get a call from somebody and they want to work on something because now they brought another dog into the home, and it's like, "Well, this dog's been doing that for 8 years," and it's like, "Oh my god." Like, if you think about it, so if your dog has been anxious for 8 years, yeah, you're a wonderful owner and you've given it everything it wants, but can you imagine feeling like that all the time? And, it doesn't matter how bad you think your dog is, you could always make improvements. You can always make them feel better. They may naturally be, their personality is, on the anxiety side, but you can always increase their confidence. I mean, you can always grow their brain, and that's something that I learned from one of my teachers, is just keep growing that brain. The brain is able to change.
Yep.
So,
Elma just asked a question that I was getting ready to bring up to you, Sylvia. I was get She says, "Any suggestions about what to do about resource guarding? Are there any tips that you can, um, you don't have to go in severe detail about them, but just give them some tips on, yes, this."
yeah, so just understand the triggers when, where, and why. And for me, I am always wanting to create a safe zone for my dogs, whether that be a station or a room with a baby gate. I would look at increasing enrichment. And people are often afraid, well, my dog resource guards. And it's like, you don't need to be there. You only need to um, fill the stuff and give them the stuff and give it to them in a room and let them enjoy, because enrichment makes dogs feel good. I also I actually have a it's a Facebook group, and it's not a discussion group. I do not allow discussions. I don't like those types of groups because they're not helpful. I don't want everybody saying, "Well, this worked for my dog." There's guides in there and there's a lot of information. Some people have had success. If they want more discussion opportunity, I do have another one-time paid group for that. But make sure they have a safe zone. Make sure they truly learn that that's a safe space for them. Take away, manage. So where is your dog resource guarding? For example, if we've got a dog that runs underneath the couch and then resource guards, we'll block off access to that area. Give that dog, change the picture, because our animals, I'm not an expert on other animals. I know some that I've worked with, but change the picture. Give it a new space that it can enjoy. Maybe it's a space it already likes, and uh, create some predictability. If they're resource guarding with you, one of the first things I ask owners to do is to just boil some chicken or another protein and just drop it while you're walking around, because you want to change your relationship with the dog, because for whatever reason it's resource guarding with you. There's something in that relationship where your dog thinks that it needs to protect itself. So I have had clients where resource guarding has become dangerous because other trainers have gone in and have used aversive methods. And clients, they don't know. This is like the Wild West in our industry now. It's gotten worse. I've been in it a long time. So when I walk in and, I had one lady, they had to euthanize the dog because they were done. They were absolutely done. And they had used too many aversive trainers. One actually did physical damage. And I think the dog was also traumatized. But it was too late. I was like the fourth person coming in. I had another one. I came in afterwards and the dog was biting the owner. So, we had to change that. Um, you know, Anyways, but create that safe zone, increase the enrichment, change your predictability. If you're a Pez dispensing machine, you're going to change your dog's view of even approaches. Those are the simple things. Um,
And when you say dispensing machine, it's like you're making yourself or the environment a conditioned reinforcer.
yep,
Good things always happen here. Things
yep,
I like always happen here. So you'll see, and if you learn to understand the dog, you'll see his behavior start to change and more things that where you can see as relaxed.
yeah.
Um,
Yep. And after that, then I ask, just start conditioning a marker without any pressure. So a lot of times resource guarders, I mean, they are so sensitive to pressure. Um, And you really want to create an environment of they're making a lot of choices and they don't have, because they get worried if as soon as we start, if we're trying to ask them for something, and if there's resource guarding there, something is broken. So once you start, doing the conditioning with something that's high value, so we need to use high value, and that's why I say, boiled chicken, or if the dog can't have chicken, then make a meatloaf. You want it to be that high value, and then start conditioning a bridge or a marker, so that now you are starting to slowly teach some communication that you can, you know, as you progress into more teaching. It seems simplistic, but there is a method.
Yeah, there's a
There's a
method,
method that.
and you
Pardon?
can I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Say that again?
I said there's a method, and you can watch and see behavior change, and you need to understand what you're looking for,
Yeah,
and the steps to take next.
yeah. And, once you've conditioned that marker or bridge, you can capture behaviors that are going to be very non-resource guarding. The dog walks away, you can mark that.
Mhm.
So walking away is disengagement, and that's the opposite of resource guarding. So a lot of times, not a
That
lot of times,
teaches the dog that walking away has value as well.
yeah, they're disengaging. Because some resource guarders, they get stuck. They get stuck. Their brain gets stuck.
Because in just you saying that, it gets stuck because it's harder for animals to learn and process information when they're in such a high state of stress.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, they don't really want to resource guard, but it's like they just get stuck, and, just get them moving. Just get them moving. Get them unstuck. Because it's almost like, I mean, it's not like that because they don't have the same brain, but it's almost like that catastrophic thinking process, right? It's like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." Right?
Panic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so there are steps to take. There are people to reach out to. There are articles to read, blog posts, websites to visit. Make sure you're on the right path. If you need some guidance, find somebody that you trust and understand. You understand their methods. Ask around. The world is a very small place. Ask around for the methods they use. Um, I mean, I have any issues in separation anxiety, resource guarding, Sylvia, I come to you. Um, but Sylvia, with that being said, don't you have a book coming out?
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. It should be published any day. We're just there was a problem with our email, and we are just working on the book cover, so it should be published any day now. It's the weekend, so um just yeah, I think they're still, they showed me a book cover and I kind of changed it, and then they were going to go back and show me another one. So it should be soon. I do have my resource guarding dog group. Like I say, it's full of information in the guides, which are like chapters. There is no, you can ask questions in each guide or post, but it's not meant to be a place for you to get a lot of the information in there. I've had many owners. There's owners from around the world in there that have had solutions. I do have a few challenges, so starting points for owners to clients, guardians to start working on. And, if you wanted, I have a one-time fee membership for resource guarding if you want the opportunity for more discussion, which is a pretty good deal. I also have, it was the start of my book right now. I do have as an ebook that you can buy, but the resource guarding book should be coming out shortly. So, and, I
When that
might
comes
I
out,
might start working on a multi-dog resource guarding, but
When that comes out, will you let me know
Yeah.
so I can put it in my email newsletter
Yes.
so
Yes.
people know?
Yes.
And obviously, if people want to know how to reach you, Sylvia, right here is your website. And on your website contains everything,
Mhm.
your email address, how to get a hold of you, all your services, additional resources. Um, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would love to have you on again in the future.
Thanks
Um,
for having me.
yeah, you're welcome. It's
An
always good.
hour went by fast.
I know. I know. Um, well, with that being said, I want to say, Sylvia, thank you very much. We always keep in touch. For those that continue to follow the work we do, I just made a recent blog post this past week, key points in changing animal behavior. This is one of the Timberwolves, but it's behavior specific with numerous bullet points. So I appreciate everybody that has given me feedback on that. Don't forget about where am I going here? The live drop-in classes. We are going to announce those this week. They're going to be fun. I'll post it on my website, social media, and in my email newsletter. We have 2 upcoming workshops. Understanding behavior through working with a variety of species of animals. And then the second one in July is going to be Dr. Jason Crean and I talking about avian behavior training and nutrition. We have our online workshops. You can take a look at them on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com and our other services. And with that, I want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you to Sylvia. Feel free to reach out to her. You know how to get in touch with her. And when her book comes out, you can be sure that I will be posting it in our email newsletter. Okay.
Thank you.
Sylvia, thank you very much.
Have a good day, everybody.